And welcome to Hawk Talk. This is Jack Benedict along with Coach Paul Tortorella, and we're coming to you from the beautiful Hilton Garden Inn, the C.H. Fields Craft Kitchen location, as we do each and every week. We talk IUP football. Crimson Hawks getting ready to head to Greensburg this week to play Seton Hill University in a 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday afternoon. And coming off a win over California last week, over Edinboro. California was the week before, Slippery Rock before that. I'm going to keep my games in order here. But the nice thing about it, Coach, is we have to talk about a win now,
right,
instead of the last couple of weeks. And, boy, that just changes everything, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, especially when you lose two in a row. I think it's only happened twice in the 6 years, in the last 6 seasons. And the last time we lost twice was 2 years ago, and we end up winning 9 games in a row after that. So we're going to try to do the same thing, and it obviously starts with the first game Saturday against Edinboro, and then we'll worry about this week when Saturday comes against Seton Hill.
Yeah, let's. We're going to show the highlights of last week and the victory, and it was a nice thing to get started, recovering a fumble and then getting a nice long, exciting run by DeJour Stewart of 78 yards, and we're going to bring up some highlights for you. It was a misty day, as you could probably tell, and he just found his way outside and headed down the sideline, and nobody got him.
Well, he cut that all the way back, and we cracked the down safety. Hilton Ridley went in and cracked the down safety in the corner, who had a man-to-man, went with them, and that's what you hope happens. You take 2 for 1, and then DeJour bent it all the way back and, outran everybody else. They were really overplaying the run to the front side, and he cut it all the way back. It's, we call it not even a cutback, a bend back. He took it all the way back, and the key to make it go the way it went was the crack block by the wide out on the down safety. So it was well executed. He outran the rest of their secondary, so it was good to get off to a 7-0 lead in those conditions.
We'll talk a little bit more about DeJour a little bit later on. A couple of fans have some questions about him, too. So you have Nico Marchitelli as your quarterback for the day, redshirt freshman, and we'll kind of focus on him a little bit later on. He had a couple of touchdown passes, too, that really were really exciting to see. One of them was to Quinn Zanoble. And Quinn, here's the highlight on that one, the play fake, and then he laid it right in there. Beautiful.
Yeah, and we ran that switch route there into the boundary, hoping it would happen just really exactly the way it did. The post route by Ridley, he took 2 guys like he was supposed to, and then Zanoble ran the switch in the corner, couldn't get off on him. So, you still have to make the throw. I mean, earlier in the season against East Stroudsburg, we had a couple switch routes wide open, and we had overthrown both of them. This one into the boundary is a little bit easier than a field switch route, and he put it on him. He made 6 really good plays in the second half. He had 3 big passes. The other touchdown that we may be seeing here, the 3rd and 2 play where we went play action with big people. They went goal line defense out on the 40-yard line, and we hit the tight end. Nobody covered him for about a 25-yard gain. And then, obviously, the touchdown, the throwback to DeJour Stewart. And then he had 3 big runs for first downs in the second half. The one was on 3rd and 10. He did a great job making the defensive lineman miss him, who came free, ran for a first down. So he played a really good second half. He had 1 mistake. He threw an interception. If he lays it out over the top into the back of the end zone, it has a chance, because there was a guy in center field that really wasn't deep enough, but he kind of underthrew it. He was a little late with the throw, but if he gets off of it because he sees the center fielder, we've got a receiver on an out route to the field that if he hits him, it's got a chance to score. So other than that play, really, in the second half, he played a pretty good game. There's another play in the second half where it's a bad snap, and DeJour runs into him, and the ball's on the ground, and it's looking like a 6 to 8 yard loss on 1st and 10. Well, he gets it back to the line of scrimmage. And people say, well, big deal. Well, there is a big deal, because on 2nd and 10 we ran a play, got it to 3rd and 7, and then he scrambled for a first down. Well, that's not going to happen if it's 2nd and 18.
Yeah.
And we end up scoring on the pass to Stewart on that drive. So he got us out of a little of a, we only had 3 negative plays the whole game. We didn't get sacked. We had 3 runs, a 1-yard loss, a 1-yard loss, and a 2-yard loss. Those were only 3 negative plays other than the turnovers. The turnovers killed us in the first half. The punt return fumble killed us. Defense did a great job holding them to a field goal when they get the ball on the 16-yard line. And then we had another 1-play drive where we fumble on the first play of a drive. We can't even get the defense situated and make corrections on the sideline because they come off and they're only out there for 1 play. So we had a no-play drive when we fumbled the punt return. We had a 1-play drive when we fumbled, and we also had a 1-play drive when we scored the touchdown. Now, we'll take that every time because you still got the kickoff, and obviously you're scoring 7 points. We'll take that every time. But those 1-play turnovers or no-play turnovers made the first half a potential disaster. And to go in only down 10-7 was actually a win at halftime because, we had 2 crucial turnovers and didn't have the ball very long because even when we scored, we only had it for 1 play.
I saw that I think it was a little less than 8 minutes.
Yeah, and we flipped it in the second half. We had it for 19 minutes in the second half, and they only had it for 11. But if you look at the stats and the 2 big passes we gave up in the first half, the one cost us a touchdown. To go in only down 10-7 and get the ball to start the second half was actually a win for us because it could have been worse. Because after we scored the touchdown and went up 7-0, we didn't play very well the rest of the half.
Well, we're going to take a look at that throwback pass from Marchitelli to DeJour Stewart, and this is a great looking play. How he got so wide open. You had everybody going that way.
Right, and you can't see it on there, but when DeJour came out, there was a safety down with a lot of width, and he did a good job going inside him and then getting back out. If he would have tried to cross his face, it would have took too long. The guy could have came off on him. So DeJour's path to get to where he was for the catch, he did a great job because we weren't expecting that safety to be down that wide. And, when you practice it, the safety's not down that wide and you take it outside. But DeJour came and the guy was outside and he didn't try to beat him outside. He just went inside him and then back out, and he was, he's uncovered.
Yeah.
But you still got to make the throw and you still got to sell the action. So Nico did a good job there, and he's a redshirt freshman. I don't see very many redshirt freshmen out there playing quarterback in our league. The guy at Slippery Rock that's having a great year that might be player of the year other than the wideout, he's been there for 4 years. And he's a junior, and he's getting his first year starting.
Yeah, and he's making the most of it. But
Absolutely.
But he's been there.
But he's been there. People don't realize, especially at that position, it's hard to play quarterback as a redshirt freshman.
Well, that's even the thing when you think about Karst.
Absolutely. He's
Karst.
like having a freshman because the 2 years that he had was in a totally different offense, a totally different structure, a totally different program, playing teams that are totally different than teams that we play. So it was literally with not having them in the spring, people, frown on me saying it. It was like having a first-year player at quarterback.
Well, I know I was, thinking the same thing, but just from the fact that, he wasn't here and wasn't of his liking or his doing, but it's worked out, and fortunately, we'll talk about Karst a little bit later on, and Nico too. Okay, give me a grade of the teams. You broke down the first half. Second half was very strong. If you gave the team performance an A, B, C, or D, what would it be for the game?
Well, I think, when you win, it's always at least a B, I would think. But what people don't realize is the pressure that our defense was under in the first half because of the way the game went. I mean, I could show you the first 7 series of the game where Edinboro got the ball, and to hold them to 10 points, and really they got 7 off of blown coverage. We really should hold them to 3, but they did miss a field goal, so they really should have only had 6 points. But our offense and our kicking game put our defense in a lot of pressure, put a lot of pressure on our defense. And our defense responded. You know, we did give up some yards, but at the end of the day, they had the ball 7 times in the first half, and 4 of them they had on the other side of the 50 to start the drives. So to go out there, you know, we fumble on our 16-yard line and we hold them to a field goal, you know, sudden change. We fumble on our 40-yard line and they don't even score. We make them punt. We actually get a 3-and-out after Younger's fumble. We get backed up because we don't catch a punt early in the game and they down it on the 6. We punt into the wind, or actually we had the wind on that one, but it wasn't that big of a deal. They start a series on our 40-yard line.
Right.
They don't score any points. So, like, to go back and look at it, and I said to the defensive coaches today, back when I was a defensive coordinator, by the end of the half I would have been kind of frustrated, to be honest with you. But, you know, we talked about playing situational football going into the week, which we haven't done a good job of the last 2 weeks. If the offense or the kicking game struggles, then the defense has to pick everybody up. If the defense is struggling, like we did at Slippery Rock, then the offense has to pick up the defense, or the kicking game has to pick up the defense. But you know, we had 2 bad plays in the first half in the kicking game where we dropped a punt for a fumble, and then we didn't catch one, and it bounced down to the 6-yard line. And in those conditions, you don't want to be starting drives on your own 6-yard line. So the defense kept us in the game in the first half, and then we played pretty well in the second half and shut them out. But a big part of that was our offense had the ball for most of the second half, and we only had to play 20 plays on defense. You look at third down, like when you asked to grade it, our third down efficiency was not very good in the first half on either side of the ball. It was great on both sides of the ball in the second half.
So you actually could give 2 different grades.
Oh, absolutely.
First
half. That game was a game of 2 halves. When you look at the yardage at halftime.
Oh, wow.
And then look at the yardage we actually had more yards than them at the end of the game, and we were way behind at halftime in yardage. They only had like 64 yards, I think, the whole second half. They only ran 18 plays.
I was going to ask you, what happened on the breakdown on their 58-yard pass play?
Oh, the one for the touchdown?
For the touchdown that Watkins
They were in a bunch set, and we were playing man coverage. Now, there's 1 or 2 ways you handle it. You either get out of man and you make a zone check, which is probably the safest way to do it. But then you're a little bit softer in coverage, and you know, we were trying to get. It was 3rd and 8. We were trying to get off the field, so we stayed in our man. And what actually happens is 2 of our defenders got to play combination on 2 of their receivers. Well, 2 of our defenders took the one guy and nobody took the other guy. Now, we still have a center fielder who should have been back there to at least make the tackle, okay? And he wasn't back there, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he technically, where the ball was caught on the hash, even though we blew the coverage, you expect the center field to be somewhere in the vicinity of where the ball was thrown. We hit the guy as soon as he threw it. Like, he just got it off. He got hit right when he threw it. And it wasn't a great throw. The ball was in the air forever, but it was good enough. But we at least would have had, if the center fielder would have got to where he should have got, we'd at least had a guy there to prevent it from being a touchdown, and maybe could have made a play on the ball. But we had 2 guys take one and left the other guy go.
Well, we've even seen that happen in the NFL
Well,
this week.
it happened for us. They had somebody that was supposed to be on the running back. Like, I don't know where he was at, but they had somebody for the running back on the throwback, and they obviously didn't take him.
No,
it was
they
probably
didn't.
that safety that came down wide on the backside, and he just let him go right by him. So that's like when you give up big plays, it's because you screw up. Like, it's very rarely a physical mistake when you give up a big play. Like their trick play they ran, they had us in 3 deep into the boundary. Our corner had to go with the post because we didn't have our guy in center field. And now the switch routes going down the sideline, and luckily our safety, Johnston, who's really a curl flat player into the boundary, at least, you know, runs it down and they don't score on the drive. Whereas if he doesn't run it down, they're going to score on that play.
Yeah.
So after those 2 scenarios, we simplified any type of certain formations, and we just were very conservative, and we didn't want to get in a situation where if we blew a coverage, it would cost us. So we went to zone checks against that type of, they gave us the bunch formation to the field, and then the trips into the boundary on the trick play are kind of what we call quote unquote junk formations. And you got to, you got to be sharp in what you check to, and you got to play it. They got 2 big plays, and they got 7 points.
Yeah.
We got 2 big plays, and we got 14 points. So that the trade-off was, in our favor, but we can't give up. They had 330 yards of offense. 120 of them came on 2 plays.
There you go.
So they would have 200 yards of offense and maybe kicked a field goal, or maybe had 2 field goals if we don't give up the big ones.
Well, it's always adjustments, and we're going to talk about adjustment on offense and what came about in the second half of the win on Saturday. We'll be back. You're watching and listening to Hawk Talk, and we're coming to you live from the Hilton Garden Inn with Coach Paul Tortorella. We have a special guest coming along at 6:30, so stay with us, and we'll be back on U92Radio.com and Renda Digital TV after this.
No pressure, no hassle. Only one of the reasons to buy your new or pre-owned vehicle from Walker GMC in downtown Katanning. Make the short drive across 422 and see why Walker Motor Company was voted #1 new and used dealership in Armstrong County for 6 straight years.
Don't miss the Dowd 73rd anniversary sale. Whether you want to furnish one room or your entire home, you'll save big. Save up to 40% on custom orders and up to 70% on select floor samples. You'll save on the area's largest selection of in-stock inventory, ready for delivery. Plus, get additional cash discounts or 1-year free financing. The Dowd 73rd anniversary sale. Dowd's of Plumville and Greensburg.
Doesn't your home deserve Dowd's?
Located along the beautiful Allegheny River in downtown Katanning, the Meredith Inn provides an atmosphere of casual upscale dining. Dine indoors or outside on the new patio. Check them out on Facebook or visit their website at themeredithinn.com. Well worth the drive.
Welcome back, everybody, to Hawk Talk, coming to you live from the Hilton Garden Inn. Jack Benedict with Coach Paul Tortorella. UP coming off a victory, getting ready for Seton Hill on the road this coming Saturday afternoon. If you're headed down Greensburg way, short trip, 3 o'clock for the kickoff there. All right, Coach, you went old school in the second half. You went I formation. When did it, I don't want to say dawn on you, but when did you make the decision to do that? Was it halftime?
Well, going in at the half, Coach Wilson, Coach Campolo, and myself got together, and I said we got to get a lead blocker for what they were doing. They were what they were doing defensively was very unorthodox. Edinboro, give them credit. So we needed a lead blocker. Well, my answer was, well, let's get a guy over in motion and do it that way. And the 2 offensive guys said, well, no, we'll get in the eye and use the fullback to get the lead blocker. And it got us what we wanted, just in a different way, because when we were motioning a guy over, they were adjusting to the motion and they were getting an extra guy there. So it wasn't as good as with us being in the eye, because we could get the play to either side without them knowing. It was an answer to the unorthodox defense that they were playing. They were weak in the alleys for the outside zone. They were clogging up the inside, like from tackle to tackle. There was a lot of bodies in there. They were covering up all of our linemen, and they were playing too deep behind it. So the weak spot of the defense was the alley, off the tight end, so to speak. So that's where we attacked them on both sides of the ball with the lead blocker.
One of the fans texted me and said, ask Coach how much do you devote to that type of offense during the the course of the week?
We usually run maybe 6 to 10 plays a week out of that formation. And we've done it a little bit all year, but never more than 1 or 2 plays a game. But when we came out in it, and we got 7, we got 8, we got 7, we got 12, just stayed with it, and mixed in some other things. But that was really, I don't have the stats on it, but if I had to guess, I'd say we probably ran it 15 plays in the second half and had 150 yards of rushing out of that formation.
Yeah. So what you're doing is in preparing whatever defense the other team is going to be in, you can adjust. Now you have an option. Maybe you always had the option to go to the eye instead of the spread formation. But doesn't that make their other defenses think about just a little bit? Hey, look what they did last week. We haven't seen IUP do that in years.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would think that Seton Hill's going to be ready for that formation this week, so who knows what we're going to do. But what happens, people kind of don't realize that we see a lot of teams when we play them, they do a lot of unorthodox things when we play them. Like Edinboro got in, they had 24 plays in formations Saturday against us that they really haven't gotten in all year.
At all.
Wow. Out of formations. And then defensively, they played a front with a coverage that I don't know if I've ever seen it in all my years of coaching. I've seen the front and I've seen the coverage, but never together.
Oh. And
it was very good in the first half for them until we made some adjustments. So, I think our coaches did a really good job on both sides of the ball in regards to making the adjustments, and we made an adjustment in the kicking game in regards to both punt teams that I think helped us. So I think we, as coaches, you got to give your guys the best chance to win, and you got to help them. You got to be able to make adjustments, and sometimes the adjustments work, sometimes they don't, but that's why you coach. I mean, you've got to give them an opportunity to win the game and give them the best chance, and making those adjustments, I think, helped us. But then they got to go out and execute them.
Sure.
Which our guys did a really good job. We got very physical, especially on offense. We finished the game with the ball on offense and never gave the ball back to them in the last 5.5 minutes, and they knew what we were doing. And they knew what plays were coming, and they still couldn't stop us.
Well, you have to give a lot of credit to your O-line, and you do have a guy who is a true fullback in Parker Gregg.
Oh, he was the unsung hero.
Now, some teams don't have that, but and he's a youngster that hasn't seen much action.
And he had some knockout blocks, because now you can't cut. A lot of fullbacks used to do a lot of cutting. You can't do it anymore. They got called for a chop block, because you can only do it inside the tackles. So, he had to go get people up top, and he knocked some heads back on that second level, linebackers and down safeties. And actually, he did a fantastic job, and he did exactly what we needed.
What you needed to do.
Yeah.
Now, he was a running back, though. He was a tailback at Central Martinsburg, right?
Well, he ran the ball a lot. He caught the ball a lot out of the backfield. He played defense. He's just a tough, hard-nosed kid that, he got, it's basically, we talk about some of the other guys, when your number gets called, you got to come through, and he came through, it even ended up better than we thought it would, to be honest with you. It was to the point later in the second half where we were getting 7 yards every play.
Well, some people might say, well, gee, I wonder why that offensive line couldn't do that in other games and many times and so on. There's got to be a lot of variables for why that.
Sure.
No real answer to it, I don't think. Do you think?
There is and there isn't. Football's a simple game, but there's also some things that go on in a game
within the game
that you got to understand. If they put too many guys down in the box and you can't block them all, that's one thing. But if you can get the numbers, basically with the fullback, we got the numbers evened up. We had enough blockers for their defenders. And the weak spot was the alley where we were running the outside zone. And then we used, our play action boot game to hit the two big passes. But if you're not running the ball, those two big passes don't happen. If you're struggling running the ball, those two big pass plays wouldn't happen.
I had a fan to follow up on a DeJour Stewart, said that Stewart's weight loss is noticeable from the time he first arrived at IUP. Do you expect him to come back heavier in the spring, or is he pretty much satisfied with what he is?
He's a lot faster, a lot quicker.
Hit 162 yards. You look
Played
like
pretty good last year. I think he was first team all-league.
yeah.
This year we've had trouble getting him going because at times we've gotten behind, and you can't, the run game's big when you got the lead, or if, it's a tight, the last 2 weeks we got behind, and in the second half we almost had to, shelve the running game.
Right.
So, he had a really good game against Mercyhurst. He had a good game against Shippensburg. And he's taken a while to get going because he didn't have spring practice, and he had almost a year off with the injury.
Yeah. Another of your running back, Adam Hauser, ran hard.
Yes.
And went over 1,000 yards for his career.
Yes.
And he looked like the Adam Hauser we've seen previously. But when you're getting blocks and you have holes, you're going to look better, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it all goes hand in hand. But they also got to read the blocks. He had 2 really good runs where they should have been 3 or 4 yard gains, and he made them 8 or 9 yard gains, by running through some tackles, and he made a really nice cut on one play, and then on third, I think it was 3rd and 2, or no, it was 4th and 1 when we had the ball, and we went for it to finish the game out. He had a good run and then broke a tackle and bounced it outside. He'd gotten the first down, which is what we needed. Then he broke it outside, kept the ball in bounds, and the game was really over then once we made the first down. But I'm glad I forgot about the 1,000 yards for him. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'll congratulate him in the team meeting.
Yeah,
I just didn't think about that.
Well, there are so many things that you have to think about, how you're breaking down everything. It's amazing to me how you guys put it all together, but, it happens. I was going to bring up the fact of we talked about the fullback, we talked about Stewart and about Hauser. One of the things that has plagued IUP in the past has been penalties. That's not the case this year. You had 2 penalties for 8 yards, and looking at, you're only averaging about 5 a game. I looked at Seton Hill; they're averaging almost 7 a game.
Well, they're averaging
more.
a little over 100 yards a game at penalties. We're averaging 45 yards a game.
Is there any particular reason for that?
Well,
just more discipline, or what?
Yeah, but I heard the guy at Kentucky in a press conference the other day, and he said, we're not getting as many penalties, but we're not as aggressive and as physical as we've been.
Gotcha.
There's a fine line, but you want to be physical, you want to be aggressive. You are going to get some penalties because you are that, but you still got to play with discipline. We've played with some pretty good discipline here the last couple weeks. And like you said, Saturday we had 2 penalties for 8 yards. One was because it was half the distance. It was only a 3-yard penalty. We had an offside on defense and a legal procedure on offense, and that was it. Now, we'll take that every time, but you still got to be physical and aggressive. You don't want to have 20 yards in penalties and lose by 2 touchdowns either because you're not physical and aggressive enough. Sometimes that goes with some penalties here and there because you're over-aggressive and physical, but there's that fine line. We played a really clean game, only had 8 yards in penalties, so that's good.
Yeah, especially stay away from dead ball stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
personal fouls and that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, we played a game against Slippery Rock one year, and we both got hit with a ton of penalties because we were just hitting guys harder than these officials had seen throughout the season during the week, really, to be honest with you.
So
they were throwing flags on both of us. And it was just, we were a lot more physical than the teams they had been officiating during the season. Sometimes that happens too. But, I thought the officials in this game, one of the first times ever in my head coaching career, I didn't have one question for an official. Not one.
Okay.
Well, when you only got 8 yards in penalties, there's not a whole lot to question. But, I wasn't even asking for penalties from the other team. Like, they called a good game. Like, they they weren't looking to call penalties. Like if it was obvious, they called it and let the players play. And like there was a play where they were screaming for interference. You probably remember the play, Don.
The far end from me.
Scoreboard end away from the press box, a fade to the field. The ball was in the air forever. Taylor covered it perfect. The ball was actually thrown out of bounds.
Yes.
And their sideline's going crazy for interference. It never touched the guy. You know, the guy official just called what he saw, which was nothing. You know, everybody wants an interference when you cover a fade route, and he never touched the guy. Yeah. And the ball actually got thrown out of bounds.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now, if
well.
you have an official that wants to jump the gun and, you know, thinks that it's impossible to cover a fade for a defensive back, and then their sideline, it was on their sideline, and their sideline's jumping up and down hollering, sometimes they just throw the flag. I mean,
not
in this case. I thought the officials did a great job in managing the game. I thought they did the same thing the week before against Cal also. They just called the obvious and let the players play.
Well, that's the way we like it, so hopefully we'll get some of that on Saturday. Okay, we're going to be back, and we have more for you on Hawk Talk coming your way. Special guest coming up. Coach Paul Tortorella is with us, and we're coming to you live from the Hilton Garden Inn. Be back after we take this time out on U92Radio.com.
Dunkin' Donuts on Oakland Avenue in Indiana wants to show you its new look. Dunkin' is now open and invites you to see the newly remodeled location for yourself. The new Dunkin' has a store of the future look with several new features, such as coffee on tap, mobile order pickup space, and even smart device recharging pads and technology available inside. See for yourself the new look. The newly remodeled Dunkin' Donuts, now open on Oakland Avenue. Indiana runs on Dunkin'.
Surround yourself with good friends at the Hilton Garden Inn and C.H. Field's Craft Kitchen, offering breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, private dining, and catered events. Whether you're an out-of-town guest staying at the Hilton Garden Inn, visiting IUP, or part of the local community, they invite you to join them. On Wednesdays, it's Hump Day Happies from 4 to 6 p.m., featuring $2 off craft cocktails, draft beer, house wines by the glass, and half off select small plates. Find out more online or Facebook and make your choice after the big game. The Hilton Garden Inn and C.H. Field's Craft Kitchen.
Welcome back, everybody. We're coming to you live from the Hilton Garden Inn. Jack Benedict, along with Coach Paul Tortorella, and a special guest is the strength and conditioning coach at IUP. Rob Day is with us right here. Rob, good to have you along.
Thanks
for stopping by.
Yeah, excited.
We put a headset on you, and here we go.
Let's go.
Hey, tell us a little bit. This is your first year at IUP. And I know you're familiar with the PSAC. We can talk about that later. But where are you from originally, and how did all this come about? You got into this strength and conditioning thing.
I'm from outside of Philadelphia, Doylestown, PA, Central Bucks. And honestly, I fell into it. I got really lucky. I was in college, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. You know, took a job where I was like, I want to train people, do this. Got into a private sector gig, and it wasn't for me. And you know, at the time, my mom said apply to this job, and I got a head job at 23 at a small school called Rosemont College, which is a stone's throw right away from Villanova. If you stay on their football field, like right behind the tracks, you'd hit it. And then from there, it kind of took off. I worked at Villanova, did like a quick stint there, and then I bounced around to a couple Division III schools locally. Went back to Villanova, and that then jumped me into Millersville. Got a head job at Millersville. From Millersville, ended up at Shippensburg, and then I bounced my way out to Robert Morris for the last 5 years, and left Robert Morris in May. Went up to Penn State this past summer, and here we are.
So how did you guys get hooked up? How did you get hooked up with IUP?
The previous strength coach here, Mitch Sidecheck, was a former intern of mine, as well as having a couple other guys that coach obviously know, like Kamali O'Brien's been here. I knew Reggie Overton, and I had been to and from IUP for the past 5 years, being out at RMU. You know, I've been pretty familiar with. Obviously, when I was in the PAC, IUP was very, very good. It's 2017 that year with Ship. And you know, Kamali was running the show from a strength standpoint at that point, and we got linked up at RMU, and he spoke very, very highly of the program, of coach, and everything over here at IUP. And then you have Mitch, same thing, spoke highly of everything. It just seemed like a good fit.
Look, so it's worked out real well.
Oh,
for
absolutely. You know, I'm like one of those guys that, like, I don't really listen to a whole lot of people telling me about a guy. He was here, told them, hey, look, one thing I do is I let the experts be the experts. Like, I'm not a strength and conditioning guy. So I said, you got it, you run with it. If you have anything you want to pass through me, great, but it's all yours. And then I just watched the guy work for like a month, and we started the season, and I was like, man, this guy, I like this guy. He's on it, you know. You know, it's like kind of like when a guy's always around. Like, this guy's always around. I don't even know if he goes to sleep. I mean, this guy's always in the weight room. He's at practice. He's always around. So we went, and his former, I don't know if it was his boss, but maybe it was. I don't know. Did you work for Mark at Shippensburg at all, or was he there as an assistant?
We co-workers and things,
Yeah,
but
right.
I mean, I did a lot of
Mark
work.
Wolf, the athletic
No,
trainer.
Mark Majewski, the head coach at
okay.
Shippensburg. So before the game and pregame warm-up, you know, Mark and I are talking, and Rob comes over, and we're talking, and Mark says, let me tell you something about this guy. He goes, if you want to get a message across, this is the guy to do it. And I said, well, I kind of agree. I've seen that. And, like, he couldn't say enough great things about him, but I had already seen his work. Like, in 6 to 8 weeks, preseason camp, 2 months. Like, I'm like, this guy's he's doing a great job. Like, he handles this business. If there's something that needs addressed, he comes right to me, tells me, hey, this, that. Like, there's no secrets.
So you have communication.
Oh, yeah, but it's his baby. Like,
Right.
I don't pretend to be a strength coach. I don't want to be a strength coach. So I kind of let the experts be the experts, and it's worked out great.
Now, Coach said you're around here all the time, but do you live here?
I live out in Pittsburgh still.
Well, I think you had told me at practice one day you live near the airport down Moon Township. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
These guys must drive fast.
I was going to say,
I
you know, and no,
Either that or he sleeps in a weight room. It doesn't go home some days.
I haven't done that yet.
well, you know,
Not
those
done
of
that
us
yet.
from Indiana who drive to the Pittsburgh airport from time to time, and I try not to do that too often.
I mean,
it's a haul.
Yeah, I mean, I kept saying this, you know, all summer. I was going to Penn State all summer. You know, you cut the drive in half. It's a little easier.
Oh, there you go.
You know.
Yeah, there you go. What was the first thing or first couple of things when you got settled in here that you felt had to be done, or your approach to strength and conditioning?
Yeah, I mean the space. You know, the first thing is you want to be able to train. I mean, you got 100 guys on a team. You're going to typically split the team in half. You're going to have about 50 guys on each side of the ball. You want to make sure the space is appropriate to make sure that you can get the guys in. And for me, it's a lot about logistics and organization. The X's and O's, I mean, a squat's a squat, a clean, you know, those things can get placed. It's can we get done what we need to in an organized, efficient manner. That way the guys can get to the training in an organized, efficient manner. So day one, it was, well, what do we have in here? What do we need to do? What do we need to move around? How do we get this thing to operate? And you know, from a holistic standpoint, football is a very unique sport because if that is the sport where if you're not on point and you're not organized, it shows fast. And for me, again, you know, when you're dealing with coach, really any coach, it's not going to hurt you to be organized and create good logistics and flow in that room for the guys to excel, to make sure they have, you know, strong communication of what needs to be done, the standard in which it needs to be done, and then you can start to just chip away there. I think it's pretty simple. It's just not always easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Are you exclusively football?
No.
What all are you involved in?
I run the entire department, so every team falls under me. I've worked with just about every team here, and we've been lucky enough to be able to build a small staff to where some guys have now taken over some different teams here. They also assist football, and we start to grow this thing a little bit from that standpoint to make it more of a, you know, from my standpoint, it's more of a Division I feel at the PSAC level. That's going to lead to a couple things. For me, it's going to get more eyes on the floor. It's going to allow me to develop some coaches, which is key for me. But holistic speak from a football standpoint, it really allows me to get more eyes and hands with the guys, knowing how big is the team and what is that going to look like. We talk about flow and logistics. I mean, just look on the field. You have position coaches everywhere. Coach Tor's not running the whole team at one time, so that in the weight room to a certain degree needs to be mirrored if you're going to do it at a higher level.
What do you try to instill in the players? Because obviously football, you have more people, more bodies you're dealing with than some of the other where you have fewer players. But what do you try to specifically instill into these athletes?
I'd say 3 things. Discipline is key, especially in terms of sport like football. I mean, we were talking about penalties for the last, I don't know how long here. I mean, discipline is going to be key. Assignment alignment. Can you do what you need to do, when you need to do it, how you need to do it, and is the effort going to be there, which is the next thing. We're going to drive high effort. It's a simple thing. Everybody can give it. So those are going to be imperative. They're non-negotiables. At the end of the day, that's what sets up, you start talking about a culture, what you're doing. I mean, from my standpoint, I think that's the most important thing at which I can do. And then a toughness, that starts to fall into there. Can they start to do some tough things? There's a time and a place with that as well. You don't want to beat these guys up in the weight room right now. But at the same point, there's still a toughness to go in there, to attack it, to do what you need to do on a daily basis. Knowing that, you play the sport of football, your body's going to be a little beat up. Can we get in there, do what we need to do to make sure we stay strong in season? That way we're not the team, and at the end of the day, that's going to be broken and beaten down. We want to make sure that we're healthy, we're keeping bodies on the field. And that's their key components to what I want to accomplish in there.
Can you see
absolutely
differences here in the last few years?
Well, yeah, and the other thing that's like I hear my office is right above the weight room, so I hear him, like everything he's doing, his whistle blowing, he's got it going now.
I told him not to blow the whistle here.
Well, the other thing is what I'm looking forward to, which I think is the most important part of the organization, is your strength coach in the off season. He's important in season, but the most important person in your organization in the off season is your strength coach. So he hasn't been here in the off season. He got here this summer.
So you don't.
So he hasn't done an off season for us yet. I'm really excited about watching him operate in the off season now.
But does he really have an off season?
Well, it's a different, you're playing games every Saturday, you're trying to and again, I'm not a strength coach. You're trying to maintain your strength, and he could tell you a lot more about it than I can. But when these guys come back in January, and what he'll have them do over break, okay, and when they come back January, say 20th, till spring ball starts, which is the end of March. That 2.5 months is the most important part of your development for your players in the off season, and that's the guy. And not only the strength part, but the speed and conditioning. I mean, just the whole thing. You got to have it. You're not gonna have a great off season without a great strength coach. It's just not going to happen.
And are these players, these athletes, are they pretty receptive? That you've been dealing with, problem.
Very receptive.
Yeah.
There's a great culture here. Again, this is a big piece to why I wanted to come here. You could tell there's a great culture. The guys do a great job. They dial in when they need to dial in. They buckle down when they need to buckle down. No issues there.
Sounds good, Rob. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for inviting Coach over. We appreciate it a lot. Appreciate all your efforts, and keep us going, keep us healthy.
Well, that's the other thing.
That's the other thing, huh?
That's another thing that we've been pretty good. Mitch had a pretty good record the last 2 years of we've been fairly. I mean, when you tear an ACL, that has nothing to do with your strength and conditioning.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's just a bad break. So our injuries have gone down with Mitch. They've gone down with Rob. That's a big part of it too. You're not losing players. Obviously we got 2 or 3 guys that are out for the season, but their injuries are major. It's not because the strength and conditioning isn't sound. It's just they're major injuries that happen. But we don't have a ton of guys we don't have very many guys on the injured list. Like, you know, at times it's, you know, you got 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, we've had a handful of guys not practice, no more than a handful of guys not practice all year.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
And you got to practice if you want to be a good football player. Well, if you're injured all the time, you're not going to be practicing. And the guys now that aren't practicing for us, they're guys that are just, they're out for the year. They can't practice anyway.
Yeah. Well, and you're a fan during the course of the game.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing now. I'm going to tell you another thing now. They come to me before the game, the officials, who's your get-back guy? I tell them who it is. I can honestly say this year I have not had to tell anybody to get back yet. So he must be – I don't notice it. Like my wife says, wow, this guy's on the sideline and this person – I'm like, really? I never seen any of these guys.
So is that part of your
His
resume?
job is to get them back. And, like, I've not had one time – I haven't had the officials come over and say get them back. I haven't had to get guys back, so he must be doing a hell of a job.
No sideline warnings.
No sideline warnings. And he's got them back because I haven't even had to address it.
It's the way we like it.
Yep.
Put it on the resume.
There we go.
No sideline warnings. Thanks, Rob, for coming in. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Good job,
Coach.
man.
All right,
Thank you.
we'll be back. We're going to wrap up the show, Hawk Talk. We have the final 15 minutes or so to come your way from the Hilton Garden Inn after we take a timeout on U92Radio.com.
Don't miss the Dowd 73rd anniversary sale. Whether you want to furnish one room or your entire home, you'll save big. Save up to 40% on custom orders and up to 70% on select floor samples. You'll save on the area's largest selection of in-stock inventory, ready for delivery. Plus, get additional cash discounts or 1 year free financing. The Dowd 73rd anniversary sale. Dowd's of Plumville and Greensburg.
Doesn't your home deserve Dowd?
Dunkin' Donuts on Oakland Avenue in Indiana wants to show you its new look. Dunkin' is now open and invites you to see the newly remodeled location for yourself. The new Dunkin' has a store of the future look with several new features, such as coffee on tap, mobile order pickup space, and even smart device recharging pads and technology available inside. See for yourself the new look. The newly remodeled Dunkin' Donuts, now open on Oakland Avenue. Indiana runs on Dunkin'.
Surround yourself with good friends at the Hilton Garden Inn and CH Fields Craft Kitchen, offering breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, private dining, and catered events. Whether you're an out-of-town guest staying at the Hilton Garden Inn, visiting IUP, or part of the local community, they invite you to join them. On Wednesdays, it's Hump Day Happies from 4 to 6 p.m., featuring $2 off craft cocktails, draft beer, house wines by the glass, and half off select small plates. Find out more online or Facebook and make your choice after the big game. The Hilton Garden Inn and CH Fields Craft Kitchen.
Welcome back, everybody. We're at the C.H. Field Craft Kitchen at the Hilton Garden Inn. Jack Benedict here, along with Coach Paul Tortorella. Thanks to Rob, Dave, for coming by and giving us a little idea of this behind the scenes of what's happening. Hey, you've got Seton Hill coming up this week, and they just have not been a good football team for a long time. They've won 2 games, however. They've beaten Shippensburg. They've beaten Clarion. And they've lost to Wheeling, East Stroud, Slippery Rock, Gannon, California. What's the best game they played this year? Could you?
Well, at times they've played. They just haven't consistently played a whole game. Like at times they've played really good against Slippery Rock. Okay. Now everybody doesn't understand. Shippensburg's had a pretty good year. They just lost 9-6 in overtime to Kutztown. They barely lost to Shepherd. They beat Mill. I mean, Shippensburg's actually not a bad. They've ended up, even though they've lost a lot of close games, and Seton Hill beat them. That's probably their best game. But if you look at who they've lost to a lot of good teams. I mean, all the teams that they're losing to all have good records. You know, they've had a tough schedule. You know, just look who they've lost to: Slippery Rock, Cal,
East Stroud,
East Stroudsburg. You know, those are good teams. And at certain times in those games, they've played really well. They've just had trouble putting 60 minutes together, to be honest with you. But their best overall 60-minute game was against Shippensburg. They play very hard on the they play very hard on defense. Like, they're running around and they do some unorthodox things on defense, but they cause you problems. But their effort, and they play hard, and they run to the ball, and they've got a bunch of sacks because they do cause problems with pressure. They're actually pretty good in the kicking game. They really are. They've got a really good kick returner. Their punt teams are both really good. So, they can cause you – they do have some good athletes on their special teams. They've got a receiver that's really good, the Bayless kid, so he's a guy that, you got to really pay attention to because he's their guy and he's a good player. They've got some veterans in the offensive line. They've got 3 or 4 guys on defense that show up. Now they're pretty good players. Now they'll make some mistakes here and there, but they're used. Like Coach Signetti used to always. His big saying was, "I could feel those guys. I could feel this guy." That's what I told Larry and Campy today. I go, "There's 4 guys on that defense that I just when I watch the film, I like the big guy used to say, I can just feel them. They're like." They don't make they don't do everything right, but they cause some disruption. They got a really good nose guard. They got a DB that's really good, and they got an inside backer that they jump off the film at you now. I mean, they do some, like the splash plays like Mike Tomlin says. They have a lot of sacks. And their Achilles heel is giving up the big play, which most defenses, that's what hurts most defense. But they can cause some negative plays, and they can sack the quarterback now. And then, like I said, the receiver, he's averaging like 18 yards a catch. So he's not catching like 3-yard passes. He's catching the ball down the field. And they, like I said, they do some good things in the kicking game. So, it's like anything, no matter who you play or where you play. If you play well, you'll probably win. If you don't play well, you'll probably lose.
And you have to, as a team, you have to prepare for 2 more quarterbacks. And who we've seen this so many times. They've used 2 different guys. Their big problem there, I can see it, and you would say it's 11 interceptions.
Yeah, they've turned the ball over. That's been a problem. They've caused a lot of fumbles on defense, which is a good sign of they'll hit you.
Okay.
But they're like -9 in interceptions. They're throwing too many interceptions. But they are creating some turnovers by getting fumbles, which means they're pretty physical to get the ball out. And the penalties. They're averaging 100 yards a game in penalties, which is probably killing them also.
Oh, it's got to be.
So they're probably their own worst enemy at times. They do play 2 different quarterbacks. The one's more active in regards to scrambling and running. The other guy's more of a drop-back guy.
So there is the difference between the 2 somewhat.
It's not really like they change the offense. The other quarterback will take off and run off of the pass game. Like, if it's not there, he'll go ahead and run and start running around and scrambling. Whereas the other guy he likes to just stay in the pocket, and he'll just get rid of the ball. It's not like they have a whole different offense. They're all running. Both of them are running the same offense. They lost they had a really good running back last year that was a senior, 3-year starter for them. So they've had some good players graduate.
Well, they had the great linebacker.
Yes, they had the player of the year on defense last year, McDuffie, and he made 1 million plays. He was player of the week against us last year. He made 1 million plays against us.
Yeah, he was very good.
And they were very stingy in regards to us running the ball. I mean, they were very aggressive and played the run pretty good last year, and they also had pressure on the quarterback. And Mac was really good at getting the ball out quick, so we didn't take sacks, but they put a lot of pressure on us.
I noticed they have a familiar name with their assistants in Dave.
Yes.
Dave Kiefer.
Yep.
Our old friend Dave, who, of course, played at IUP. He was the head coach at Greensburg for 10 years.
Right.
And so now he's in the collegiate ranks.
And the one quarterback was his high school quarterback that plays.
Yes, that's the Teska.
Yeah. So
Hayden Teska.
I think he's still teaching in the Greensburg district, and he probably wanted to stay in coaching, and it's right there. So probably is a good. I haven't talked to him since last summer, so before he actually took the job. So I'll get a chance to see him Saturday and talk to him.
I remember giving him a call when he got the job at Greensburg Salem, congratulating him on that. The thing I remember too about Dave is he always was at practice,
right? And
he won the most inspirational award at IUP when you had all these individual awards.
Sure.
That's one that's not as heralded as a Player of the Year or MVP or whatever, but it's somebody you could count on.
And I can remember when he was done playing, he had like a semester or 2 semesters left, and he was like a student coach and did a really good job as a student coach. I can remember that vividly. I think his last spring and maybe even the one fall after he was already done playing and he's still going to school. So he right out, he hadn't even graduated yet, and he was out there helping with the tight ends because that's a position where you can use a guy.
Yeah. So you could tell that he probably was going into coaching.
He was there every day at practice, and so like he showed that he would probably do a good job in the profession.
Well, the key is keep the winning streak going, huh?
Right.
You've said it before. We were thinking the one game at a time type thing, but it really would be nice to keep this thing going. And the second half of the game, it looked like old-time IUP football, but that doesn't necessarily or doesn't mean that you're going to come out in an I formation.
No, I mean, whatever you do on offense and defense, you got to be physical. Like you can be physical in one back, you can be physical in the eye, you can be physical playing an even front on defense, you can be playing the scheme is the scheme, but whatever scheme you're running, football's a physical game, and usually the team that's most physical is going to win, and we got to get back to being the more physical team.
How do you like playing it off at field?
You know what? I love it.
Yeah, it's.
I actually love it. The fans are right on top of you. It's close. You take a little 20-yard walk into the locker room.
Yeah.
I actually love playing there, to be honest with you.
I think for the fans it would be great too, and just the it's very historic. It's been there for a long time, and Greensburg Salem's played there, and we've all seen games and been there many times, but it has that up close, and which means if they have fan-wise, if they have anything going, they could really get on you.
Yeah, well, it's more like our side, like just some of the fans that are sitting close to our bench need to probably hold their hands over their ears every once in a while in between series, because there might be some things said over there, and they'll hear it because they're literally right. Well, we talked about it today about the sideline. We're taking our travel squad with us and a couple injured players, and then that's it. We can't overload that sideline because we got to, be able to operate and not have a million guys on our sideline. But we've done a good job over there. We've since we started playing them, we've really played pretty well on the road against them.
Yeah, well, keep it going Saturday.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Coach. Coach Paul Tortorella, thanks to Rob Day for joining us. Thanks to all of you. We'll see you at Greensburg and Seton Hill, 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. So for everybody, this is Jack Benedict. Have yourself a Major League night.
You've been listening to another edition of Hawk Talk on the new United